Hi, French Tech Indonesia and beyond. Welcome to this new program. Let me introduce a bit about La French Tech Indonesia. La French Tech is a non-profit organization that gathers 63 communities in 50 countries around the world. In Indonesia, we are 180 plus like-minded entrepreneurs, investors, and talents. Our mission is to build an inclusive community to foster the French entrepreneurial footprint in the region and the Indonesian tech ecosystem. We envision the French Tech Indonesia to be the go-to hub for entrepreneurs, investors, and other tech startup actors in Indonesia. We organize on a regular basis many activities such as lunch and learn, networking, meetups, pitch and play, and one annual tech summit that this year will happen in October. So stay tuned. If you are not already a member, just go to FrenchTech.id and join our network. I will add the link in the comment section. This being said, let's get to what brings us here today. In this first session of Talk with Leaders, I have the pleasure to have a chat with an inspiring Indonesian lady. She is a startup and entrepreneurship ecosystem builder. She is more than involved in many initiatives on women in tech. She's also the founder and CEO of KUMPUL. I ask you a standing ovation for Faye Wongso. Hi, Faye. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for accepting my invitation. You are my first guest, and I'm so nervous to have you with me. I hope I will be a good host for you today.
Looking forward to a chat about everything related to tech, France, and Indonesia.
Yes. So let's start with a quick introduction. I already introduced you, but this is too short to introduce you. So can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit what you do?
Yeah, like you mentioned, I'm the CEO and co-founder of KUMPLUL.id. We are the largest ecosystem enabler in Indonesia, the entrepreneurship ecosystem enabler. So what we do since 2015, you take a look, what is it needs to be done to actually push the development impact for Indonesia. And then we thought entrepreneurs is the key to build the country. But around that time, our entrepreneurship level was less, like 2008, 2009, it was less than 1%. And then trying to push it, the government tried to push it for some years, and it was still around maybe 3%, 3.5%. So then we actually started by creating co-working business, because we thought that could be a small aquarium just to test the formula, how to create a healthier environment for startup founders, business owners. But then we realized that workspace, apart from Jakarta and Bali, it's not the pain point of entrepreneurs. Access is, when we live in big cities, we take it for granted that access is everywhere. So then that's why KUMPUL pivoted in 2018. We focused on delivering entrepreneurial programs for, many entrepreneurial journey and stages all across Indonesia. We partner with 120 hubs in 40 cities. And then we always identify what are the holes, which part and element in the ecosystem that still needs bridges, to be built, to be connected with. So then we create programs there. And I think we grow according to the maturity of Indonesian startup ecosystem right now. I'm also the founding partner of Supercharges Venture Builder. We work one-on-one with early stage startups to help them grow in the form of senior level, in the form of like a co-founding partner level. Because when you're early stage, sometimes you get stuck, to move to the next milestones. So like I said, we try to do a lot of initiatives to identify the needs of startup founders.
Okay, cool. I have two questions. What kind of access they are missing?
Access can be capacity building. If you know that the formal education doesn't really solve the skills for employability or the ones that industry needs, right? So you need to actually upskill according to what the industry needs. So capacity building is one, and I believe so much in mentoring, because mentor can actually share these do's and don'ts, and then also generous enough to share their past mistakes, so then you don't have to do the same. But then also access to relevant network, opportunities and market exposures, and funding, of course. But then access is not only about funding or capital, it's also about other things.
So the program that you were talking about, that you're creating based on the missing parts,
Yeah.
is it related to all these different areas, the different accesses?
Yeah. So why we run it with programs, because then you can measure it. There's a start date, and then there's a certain timeline, and then what is it that you want to measure. And of course, one program cannot solve all of your problems or help you to grow. That's why we actually partner with strategic partners like La French Tech or other accelerators, government, corporations, so we can sort of create these pipelines. And the programs that we are having is also different according to the stages of the startups and the levels. Either it's really early, like ideation level, and we did this a lot in 2016 towards 2019, but then after that, slowly we have actually more early stage startups, so people who already have product and the team and a little bit of traction, their needs would be different, so the program is actually different as well, right? And then actually starting from the last couple of years, we're really focusing on women, and you mentioned about women in tech. We work with female-led businesses as well, but then there's always digitalization part of it, in what we do together with women. Specifically this year, we work a lot with women. We have two huge national scale programs. One is She Hacks, and it's actually working with different stages of founders from early stage. There's like a group for like early stage and a group who already have MVP and prototyping and team, and how they can actually solve problems through technologies. And we are supported by Indosat Urido Hasisan here in this program. And the other one is called Perempuan Bijak Berusaha, which is it's in Indonesian. It's supported by Microsoft for Philanthropy. Wow. And we are working with thousands. I think the last numbers I got was like around 5,000 female-led businesses through like digitalization skills. And at the end of the program, we're gonna collaborate with the World Bank to create the impact measurement report of the the efficacy of digitalization training or skills. Wow. For female-led businesses. And of course, we want to see it like in the sweet spot after they finish the program, how long we actually need to wait a little bit until they can implement it, and then to see whether there's a difference or not. Yeah. We are big on measurement. KUMPUL, we also have our own scale up readiness index. So whoever come to our programs, they're gonna fill that in. It's self-assessment, but I think it's better than nothing in terms of, it's for you to have an index. And at the end of the program, we can actually identify how much did we achieve, together.
That's great. That's great. So I would like actually, I wanted to discuss with you because I would like to promote Indonesia outside Indonesia and attract more investment, more startups to come to Indonesia. I think it's important, especially. Well, I'm working for the French tech, so I'm more interested into the French-Indonesian collaborations and exchanges. But we are speaking English, so it's gonna have a positive impact, I hope, for much more than just a French community. So can you tell us a little bit about Indonesia and what is the introduce us to Indonesia? Like, I didn't know Indonesia, and what is the tech ecosystem today? What is the state of the tech ecosystem today in Indonesia? So overall, what is Indonesia, and more specifically on the tech part?
I might be biased, but I think Indonesia is the future.
I also believe that.
But I think we are still struggling to promote ourselves and to put ourselves on the global map. And this is why we have this conversation, right? Indonesia is number 4 population in the world, and we are the largest archipelago in the world. We are also the largest Muslim population in the world, you know. So, and in Southeast Asia, we are the biggest. And in terms of producing high net worth companies or startups, we are actually head to head with Singapore, and Singapore is actually backed up by 7 countries, right? It's not just like one country. So I think we just recently got our 15th unicorn in Indonesia, and it's actually doubled during the pandemic time, you know, because a lot of it is actually tech, and then tech startups were, you know, some of them they rose up, you know, during pandemic. And Indonesia has a big market, and like I said, that's why the pain point of entrepreneurs here is access, because of these logistical challenges. So the vision for us to work in the tech startup ecosystem is actually to distribute equal access and opportunities to entrepreneurs, right? And we are also facing the challenges of the tech talent, and I think this is why we need to build bridges between you know, other countries or regions such as France and Europe, one of them, you know, to have these exchanges, because as we know, Europe is really big on industrial and then deep tech and skills, also the startup skills. But I think in terms of innovations, networking, and market, we have it too. You know, it's growing here. I think it can be a very good collaboration. It can be a very useful bridge to have, not only exchanging knowledge and skills, but then also to form a more impactful and meaningful forge of, you know, business deals, and maybe to attract more French co-founders to come here, or to involve, you know, Indonesian co-founders over there. So this is what we want to see more. Actually, we are focusing on Go Global programs, and it can be inbound and outbound for 2 countries. And it would be, our strategy is to connect with ecosystem players like ourselves in different countries. We are connected to probably 11, 12 countries now. You know, France is one of them. Just to explore whether if we want to send some of our startups there, you know, so we can hold the tail and then someone can catch the head, you know, and vice versa. Indonesia has a lot of opportunities, but we are like a jungle, you know. You can find a golden mountain there, or you can find tigers too.
Yeah,
You know
true.
how it is in investment, you know.
It's a good image. It's a very good image.
High risk got you high return as well, right? But then when we're not playing a risky game here. So if you actually can identify the guides, the local community and ecosystem players who can guide you throughout that jungle, there's a bigger possibility for you to get to that golden mountain.
Yeah, it's
and
so true.
Avoid the tigers.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. But there is few things that really impressed me when I arrived to Indonesia. One of them is the Indonesian entrepreneurship spirit. Even though tech represents very small amounts today, but if we look at the Indonesians, they mostly prefer being entrepreneur, having their small business, something like warung. Warung is the small shop, pubs and shops that are everywhere. They prefer having their little street food instead of working for others. And this is really something that impressed me since the beginning. I'm here. I see always the Indonesian being very entrepreneurial. And the second thing that really impressed me is the richness of this country. So I'm not talking about natural resources, which created most probably the base of this richness, but now is also all the rest. Indonesia was saved in the COVID period because of its internal market, right? Is because the market is so resilient and the market is so huge that most of the companies and even the country didn't lose that much of increase. So yeah, it's for me, it's really the future is in Indonesia, and that's why I came here and I'm staying here since 10 years, right? Beside the Indonesian food,
Yeah.
that I really love, but yeah, I think it's really true. So in terms of tech, which are the sectors that you think are going to be the big hit in the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years?
I think agriculture is, has a lot of potentials.
Agritech, okay.
Because we do have a lot of land, we have a lot of sea as well. And Agritech sometimes can actually venture out to the sea, right? But then we actually need to see, I mentioned something about deep tech before, and it's something that we are still improving or lacking right now. A lot of Agritech right now, it's still stuck in the first generation's kind of business model, which is connecting, so let's say connecting farmers to buyers. So you're just actually being the commerce, the market connector. And then the second generations is supposedly to focusing more on the deep technology, on things that can make you more efficient and to produce more. So then we're talking more about innovations, about patent, about IP, about deep tech, and we are not there yet, So if we tap into that in every let's say phases of the supply chain, there are so many opportunities there. But then the third generation is actually the consolidations of all that supply chains, from upstream to downstream. Because then before we were actually really focusing on downstreams only, right? There's not enough like technologies to support the upstreams as well. So if this is actually being invested with money or with collaborations or with technology, I believe it can be big because we are an agricultural country.
Okay, so agriculture, the top-notch first of the future.
agriculture, and I must say also cultural and creative industries or creative economy. Indonesia is so rich. We have actually have hundreds of languages. We have more than 300 of languages. We have more than 17,000 islands, and sometimes in one island, if it's sort of like separated, geographically by a mountain or something, they could even have two different sets of cultures. So culture is big. It's so rich. And then looking at Korea or like other countries who's actually using culture and creative economy to get most of their innovations and GDPs from there. And I think Indonesia got that potentials as well.
Cool.
Then we are talking about movies, we're talking about music industry, we're talking about fashion, crafts, anything related to food as well. Yeah,
I think there is one vertical also very important in Indonesia is the green tech, because there is a lot of education to do, and there is a lot of cleaning also to do, and maybe sometimes also reforestation, this kind of things.
Yeah.
That some of French people are very involved in this green tech here in Indonesia. I have several friends who are, some of them cleaning the rivers, the seas here, and some of them are planting trees around Indonesia. So I think it's also something that's very very promising for the future. So how the foreign startups can come to Indonesia? Which are the sector where they can help? Beside this, of course, you said agriculture and entertainment, but more specifically, how they can come and help?
I mean, I'm not saying like other sectors are not promising. I'm only saying that those are the ones with, I think, with still untapped opportunities.
Okay, yeah.
So the rest, of course, there are some sectors that quite linked quite heavily with the local infrastructures and regulations, like fintech, or even like some, let's say, educations, right? Education startups are quite big too, but then not really going into like the curriculum of the country, right? Yeah, because we also have a lot of local player, and how French startups or like French companies can come and help. And I really feel like those two, if you bring in the expertise of technologies and then also the startup skills, we don't have enough tech talent or talents who can work in tech companies. Indonesia is actually the lowest in key APEC countries. We are only 0.2 per 1,000 populations compared to, I think, Singapore, who is like 5.0 for 1,000 population. So if there's this kind of like collaborations, because in terms of country and then the overview of the market, we are quite different, but then how we can actually utilize the innovations and the technology. But I think French companies are quite good in terms of the innovations and the R&D of it. And if we can sort of adopt and adapt that into the market here, that's why it's also important to find a local partner and not just to, plug in something from Europe and then make it work here. Maybe there's a gap there, but then how we adopt it and then we adapt it with the market over here, right?
Yeah, that's very important. What advice would you give to to the foreign startups to come to when they come to Indonesia?
Well, first of all, the awareness, what is Indonesia? If you never visited, then it's going to be very difficult, right? I think a lot of European startups, they prefer maybe to go to the US or UK or other market that might, feel easier, or even our neighbor Singapore.
Yeah.
But Indonesia actually got some advantages. We are we are growing democratic country. And our economic development is quite stable for the last maybe 20 years, and it's bigger than the inflation. So we are growing. We are not considered to be third world country. We are actually middle income country. And I think we are the fastest growing digital economy in Southeast Asia. So all of these opportunities and numbers, it will still scare you if you don't know Indonesia. So come first, I think, like I said, through certain programs that when you feel like it's quite controlled, it's in a short period of time, you can get to know players in the country, get to ask questions, talk to them yourselves, to test the water, whether Indonesia is for us right now or not. And then if yes, there's a pathway for you to move further, right? Yeah, so it can be a visit. Sometimes we started just with an online introductions like this. Someone from Indonesia, we call them like anchor mentor, and who can actually give an overview of that sector, and also suggestion whom, for you to be connected with. Because with market entry, I think what's important is partnership explorations. And then also for you to really know what is it that you're looking for. If you go to Indonesia, are you looking for a place to manufacture? Are you looking for, strong partner or local co-founders? Are you looking for market only? And just also to learn about the competitors, the landscape of the sector in Indonesia. So all of those you can actually do it online before flying to Indonesia. But we highly suggest you to actually be here, let's say for a week. We call it a validation trip.
Yeah.
Then you actually meet those people offline. You can get the feel, you can feel the energy. Then you go home, then you take a look at all the feelings and the findings, whether this is the right step for you or not.
Yeah, I had a dinner with this French cybersecurity company. The founder was here for a few days, and he was telling me that before that he was in Singapore, and he was like, Reza, Singapore, when they were in Singapore, they were so happy, and they were like, Singapore is so nice, so clean, and the ecosystem is so active, etc., etc. They came here and they were bluffed. They were totally excited and impressed by the energy in Jakarta, and they were like, Reza, it's not comparable. And from all the meetings that they had, they stay here for 3 days. They had, I don't know, maybe five or six meetings per day. They had 100% follow-ups. So they said in Singapore, maybe they had around 20%. Here they had 100%. That's the amount of opportunity, I think, that is here. And they were like, Reza, how can we come and install our head office in Jakarta instead of going to Singapore? And I said to them, if you go to Singapore, it will cost you 5 times more in terms of housing, in terms of your kids' school, in terms of office, in terms of human resources, etc. And in Jakarta, you will have all these things and with a reduced cost, reasonable cost, because for expats, there's always a cost, but it's much more reasonable than Singapore. And that's really, that's how I promote Indonesia, you know. It's like, guys, come here, test, and you will see that you will love it. And you will want to stay and open your office here. You're totally, I totally agree with you.
Like I said, the market is big, but then a lot of people, we are stuck still in the first generation. So not just Agritech, right? A lot of businesses here are actually being a connector, because this is why we're working on access, because people are quite segregated in terms of, you know, proximity to infrastructures or education level and social classes. So because it's a huge country, right? It's really big. Like maybe you don't realize how big Indonesia is. I think it's from UK to Turkey or something like that, if you put it on the map. And so we have all of those landscape, and like I said, with not enough. I think it's big, but because the country and the market is big, it's still not enough, you know, deep tech and then founders, you know, quality founders. So if you come with certain kind of solutions and technology, and you know, bringing like the startup skills, then the market is here, you know. And this is why we are also like hungry to take a look what is it that we can do together with the international communities to win.
Yeah. So with which other country are you partnering up besides France today?
The one in the region, of course, you know, Singapore, Malaysia, Korea has a lot of interest to go south. I think like Taiwan, Korea, they really want to venture south, to do a lot of explorations. Of course, Australia being our like closest neighbors, they have a lot of interest from the government and the state government as well to build, like to push more trades, bilateral trades, you know, also in digital economy between two countries. So those are just a few.
Yeah, and it's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning,
Yeah.
because actually in the startup ecosystem elements, internationalization or globalization is the lowest for us Indonesian. You know, when you start, you know, when you try to measure it, you know, how strong is your network, how strong is your risk capital, how strong is your startup skills. Internationalization is like 1%, like the lowest. I think we are like Moana, you know, we have this island mentality. The island has provide, you know, why do you need to go out? Yeah. And all of our unicorns became unicorns focusing on Indonesian market alone. But then a lot of them also didn't plan to have the global blueprint. And I heard this from Jack Ma, actually, if your original blueprint was not actually going global, it's gonna be more difficult to change it, you know. It's okay to start inside, internally, domestically, but then, you know, this is just phase 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 20, for example. Then later on, you actually really want to go global. So we want to encourage that to our startups. That's why I said, you know, why don't we create this bridge and then we do this inbound, outbound. Maybe now the readiness to go out can come from France or from other countries first, because maybe they don't have enough market there. You know, you need to go out. So then you can come here. But then once you start that bridge, it's also easier for our startups to, you know, go over.
Yeah, lately I met a lot of Indonesian French speaking. It's really nice to see the interest of Indonesian for France. the love sometimes it's really they really appreciate speaking French and the French food and going to France. It's really nice. Okay, for you, what are the main challenges for foreigners to come to Indonesia?
According to me, well, we do have bureaucracy and permit and all that. So it's not as easy as, because I think if you are coming as tourist, it's easy. But if you want to come and work, it's like in any other country, you know, you need to manage the work permit and all that. And I think a lot of people are deterred by that. But that actually in Indonesia, because we have really strong networking skills. It's actually our strongest point in that startup ecosystem scores, you know. So we always know someone who can help us legally. I mean, you know, it might look difficult for us when we come from outside, but we know the rules here, right? It's our food every day. Like, we need to do it like that. I think it's the same. Like, if I go to France, you know, you also have all of this rules and then steps, and then maybe it can be overwhelming for someone who's not from there. So this is actually what we offer to bridge. And for foreigners, like you said, you'll find that life is good. When you have money, life is good.
That's true anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world. But I think we all know that in Europe, even when you have money, you need to do everything yourself, right? We have 280 million people. So it's actually just like more opportunities, you know, to create like employments and all. It's
here is the country of services.
Yeah, we have good food. If you want to eat different food for 365 days in a year, we have different food for like every single day of the year.
I agree.
If you are adventurous enough to try all. But I think for foreigners are that, you know, it's the law, and also the fact that there are some laws that really favoring Indonesian, like ownership of land and all that. But if you are serious in building your business and your team here, actually the foreign-owned companies can own properties and land. So I think it's just difficult for people who don't want to formalize their stay.
Yeah. In France, we created this visa called the French Tech Visa, and specifically for talents who wants to work for a French company, or for investors, or for co-founders who wants, even founders. I mean, not only co-founders, founders who wants to come and create basically their company in France, or develop their company in France and create jobs in France. I heard that there is this same kind of idea. It's called digital nomad visa. Is it already launched, or?
It was launched, but I don't think it's that big difference than what happened before. Yeah, so that's, I think that's all I know. Another challenges, actually, if you also want to you know, the government, I think not just Indonesia, everywhere in the world, it's a little bit behind when it comes to adjusting the rules and regulations towards the development of the industry or startups, you know. So because then now we have tech startups and all that. And then the way you form the company, it's actually still the same like you form a conventional companies. The amount of capital you need to put in if you have, if you are being called the foreign owned companies, for example. So that's actually part of the homework. We are still lobbying the governments to see that,
Okay, cool. Just for the public who is watching this video, we are having this program with Business France in October. It's included in our summit, and we bring 8 to 10 startups, French startups here to discover the Indonesian market, to meet with potential clients, to meet with potential partners. So if you are you're looking for anything, just contact me through this video, or you can contact the Business France also, and you can also contact Faye with KUMPUL Indonesia, KUMPLUL.id, and I'm sure that she'll be so happy to help you and to connect and make sure that you have a great idea of Indonesia, because it's truly the future, and truly a beautiful country with really, and I really mean this, beautiful people, really nice and honest and lovely, really. So you will enjoy it. I'm telling you, it's a promise. So Faye, I finished my questions. Do you have any word to finish our discussion? Do you want to say a last word?
I think I've said it all. I think I'm looking forward to have more collaborators, to build bridges between, let's say, the East and the West. And in this sense, I'm actually really glad that La French Tech is here, and also very inclusive. So diversity and inclusion is also big for us, simply because, like I said, Indonesia is so diverse, so I think embracing inclusivity is the only way to be big and to do something impactful. And I also just want to mention that I think in the future, we also need to focus not on the players, but also on the people who put the capital and the fund available. I think that part needs to be disrupted more too. Because I think it's the longest time the financial institutions are like that, and still dominated by men, sort of like created by men for men. And we always say, oh, we need to push, like more investment for women, like female-led businesses. And the numbers just doesn't catch up. It's increasing, but it's so slow. And we need to actually think, because the one who gives the fund are still not women, And I actually heard that in France or in Europe, there's already this kind of movement try to disrupt this, because they found out that there's actually 15 trillion euros sitting in the bank account of women in Europe.
Wow.
And that's a lot of money if you actually put it, but women are not investing, all the men are investing,
Yeah.
So this is an exciting time, I think. We saw our world being disrupted by COVID-19 and the rise of tech and the tech winter. But then I think all of these changes will, disrupt more. And I'm so looking forward to see what we can do together.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much. That was the word of the end of this first session of our Leaders Talk. Thank you so much, Faye. Really appreciate your time. Every time I ask you for your time, you are always available and always there to meet me and have a coffee and discuss. And thank you so much for this great session. You'll find this on our channel, YouTube channel. And thank you again, Faye. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So glad to be here.
Okay. So bye-bye, everybody, and meet you soon in Jakarta or Bali.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.